Hi guys, welcome back to Infinite Possibilities, the podcast where we explore the lives of amazing people, their choices, challenges and opportunities. And today I have a very special guest, Dom.
Thanks for having me, Karen.
Thanks for being here, Dom. So, Dom, what do you do? Give your 1 minute introduction.
Right now I'm working at KPMG. I'm a technology risk consultant. Back in the day I used to be a professional tennis player. I went down the college route and played some professional tournaments and got my ranking up. I've switched sports, so now I play Padel for Australia, which is a new kind of thing, and I do that while working full-time at KPMG.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that's really hard to juggle both. So we're really going to explore and dig into that a bit. But first, we want to go right from the beginning. So we want to know, Dom, what kind of child were you like growing up?
That's a good question. Growing up, I remember I used to be very quiet. I was very introverted. At school, or no, before school, I know my mum, she used to be like, "Oh, you were such a good kid, so quiet. You helped your brother and sister, you know."
Perfect child.
Yeah, I was.
What happened?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, she literally said you were like such the best child out of everyone. And then in high school, I remember like super introverted, and I just like observing people. And I was in I guess I was in the cool group, but I was more like the sporty guy. So like on the weekends when they were, you know, hanging out doing whatever they do, I was like playing tournaments, tennis tournaments, and all other sports. I was just super into my sports. But it's kind of weird, like over time, my personality's changed, and I've gone from an introvert to college. I became an extrovert because it's something I wanted to actually work on. And so you put yourself in these social situations, and I was like, all right, I want to like talk more and make more jokes. And over time I became more extroverted, and now it's gone back, so now I'm like a 50-50 mix, I'd say.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, I guess so. Introverted, extrovert.
And tell me more about school. So you were super sporty. Were you academic? Were you you weren't the class jokester because you were pretty introverted then?
Yeah, no, I wasn't the jokester. I was pretty sporty. Always loved sports class. That's kind of where I thrived. Even though like I was an introvert, like sports kind of brings out like this more confident alter ego that I got, and I just make jokes and get everyone involved. But I was also very academic, so like I was very, I still am very like intrinsically motivated. So I'd be studying, you know, on the weekends, after school, just to get my grades up, and it really gave me like self-satisfaction getting those good grades back. And although I was in the cool group, it was like not cool to study.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, it's just what I did, and I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bit of a nerd, sporty nerd. Maybe that's the best way to describe it.
Best of both worlds, but still cool.
Yeah, I guess.
Cool. And just wondering, how many siblings do you have?
I have a brother and sister, and my sister Gabby, she is 4 years younger than me, so she's the youngest. And then I have a brother, his name's Alex, he's 2 years younger than me, so we're spread out 2 years, 2 years.
So you're like the older, responsible brother.
Yes, exactly that.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. And so when you were thinking about the career, you know, for yourself in the future, what was sort of floating through your mind?
So when I started playing tennis, like pretty seriously, you'd have these goal-setting sessions with your coaches and your parents, and I think everyone says, "Oh, I want to be like professional tennis player, number one in the world." But I don't know if I actually believed that back then. Like I think it was just what everyone said, so you just say it. And I don't know if I really had motivation to be a professional tennis player, but you know, it's kind of like what I said. At one stage, I think when I was 16, my parents, they organised one of those personality tests to see what kind of jobs you'd be suited for. And it's really funny. I think the results were you're suited for something outdoors. You love outdoors. You love nature. Stay away from corporate office jobs. And I was like, at the time, I was like, yeah, I see that. I love being outdoors. But now I'm working in this office job 9 to 5, and I really enjoy it. But I think that's what matches back to the personality change. Like your personality changes over time, So maybe back when I was 16, I was suited for like an outdoor job, maybe playing tennis or a tennis coach. But now I like the office job. I love just being in an aircon. It's so comfortable rather than being out in like 40-degree days, just like feeding balls or hitting balls. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's cool. And so also you live like 2 lives, right? There was Dom 1.0 and then there's like Dom 2.0.
Yeah, really. I've evolved, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. And just wondering, so like how did you sort of first get into tennis? Was that your favourite of all the sports when you were first introduced, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. So from what my dad told me, he said when I was really young, I think when I was 1 or 2, and there's some video of it, he gave me a skittle and he'd roll me like balls, and I'd be just sitting on the ground, like couldn't even walk yet, and I'd just be hitting the balls with the skittle. And I think that's how I developed my hand-eye coordination. Over time, I guess that's developed, and I got into tennis, soccer and baseball. T-ball back in the days when you were young. And I was really good at all 3 of them, and I was playing them a couple times a week. And I think when I was 13, it came to that point and be like, all right, like probably want to choose a sport to pursue. And I made the tough decision to pursue tennis. Might not have been the right decision because soccer players, they make a lot of money, right? And it doesn't matter, like there's so many divisions, so many players, like and baseball as well, so many players. The difference with tennis is that you have to be like top 100 in the world to make a living, and that's like the top 0.0001%. It's like it's easy to be a rocket scientist. There's more rocket scientists in the world than there is to be a tennis player. But yeah, when I was 13, I made the decision to pursue tennis, maybe because I was a little bit better at tennis than the other sports, and I think I did enjoy it more, just that feeling of being able to hit the ball wherever you want. That's what I loved about tennis.
Damn, what about T-ball, man?
T-ball, T-ball too, you can hit the ball wherever you want, and I was really good at catching. I was like all-rounder in T-ball and baseball. Won a state championship, was selected for like, I think maybe the national team. But yeah, I guess I can't even remember. It was like when I was 13, so it was just the decision that was made.
And were your parents like super supportive?
Yeah, my parents were really good. Like now that I'm retired from the professional tennis, you get to kind of like look back at your career, and one of the things I really appreciate and acknowledge is that like my parents, they put in a lot of time. Like they're driving me to all the tournaments on the weekends, like staying at the club with me the whole weekend, pretty much wasting their weekend just to watch me. They're financially supporting me, travelling overseas, getting coaching. So yeah, they were very supportive, and even when I was like retiring tennis, they're like, like that's your decision. You know, you gave it your best effort. I'm like, and they still support me in whatever I pursue today, like paddle. They help me out with that
He's
too.
like, not again, and then they have to
go through that whole thing.
Yeah, the whole cycle again.
Yeah,
wow, that's cool. And did at any point, like when you first told your parents you wanted to do this professionally, were they like a bit skeptical, like, hey, you know, it's hard to make a living, or like, we don't want you to be like very, like, because it's like a lot of work and it's a lot of like hardship on your body. So were they kind of, you know, on the fence about it?
I think their point of view is just like, if this is what you like doing, then we'll support you. So, that's kind of just how it went. They could see that I loved doing it, and I was playing like every day with my friends, and it was like a transition. Like you don't all of a sudden be like, oh, I want to play professional tennis. You know, you get like some results in juniors, you're like, oh, it's pretty good, maybe I'll go play some national tournaments. You do pretty well in national tournaments, and you're like, all right, I'll try my hand at international tournaments, and you like keep going. And then at one point, I guess, where you make that decision between, do I go professional or do I go college route or do I give up, is when you like finish high school. And so I finished high school and I decided to go down the college route, which was getting really popular at the time. It was kind of new, but I had a couple of older friends that I played tennis with, and they were starting to go down the college route, which was it seemed pretty good. They're like, you get free tuition, free accommodation, and you get to play really good matches. And you get to get a degree at the end of it, rather than just going professional. You don't really have like a fallback system.
Yeah, that's cool. So at that point in time, when you decided to pursue it, you sort of had like a plan B kind of thing?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. Going to college was the plan B, like getting a degree.
Yeah, that's cool. And so how did you choose what you wanted to major in?
So I still didn't really know what I wanted to do after high school, even after the personality career stuff. So I think I just chose business, because business is just like the overarching, the generic one. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll like specialise. My dad's in business. So I decided to do business just because it seemed like easier. A lot of student athletes also chose business. And I was like, all right, we'll see. We'll start there and we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's cool. And what did you sort of end up majoring in business?
So business with a concentration entrepreneurship is the major that I received from Cal Poly, which is the second university I went into in America after I transferred from the first one. Yeah. So I got my 4-year degree from that. And I think it's like a Bachelor of Science is the actual thing for some reason. Yeah, I don't know why it's science.
It's weird.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. Yeah, and speaking of entrepreneurship, that's your sort of like, I guess, third career that you've sort of, dabbled in. So tell me more about like, why entrepreneurship? Because it sounds like, your fallback plan was business, and then you majored in something that was pretty risky. So it's kind of like a pretty risky fallback, no? Yeah, no,
entrepreneurship, it's always kind of, it's been like a passion hobby of mine, something that's piques my interest. I think it's just being able to work for yourself, having that flexibility of pursuing whatever you want to. And I was just kind of like hooked by that when you get a glimpse into some actual businesses that your friends have worked in, your friends have started, professors have told you about, they bring in guest speakers.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, like this is a completely different life than working in the corporate. So, that was an interest of mine, and I've been involved in a couple startup companies, some of them my own, some of them other people's. Right now it's just full KPMG though, but couple years ago, actually just over a year ago, I was doing my own venture.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk more about that third career. So what was your first internship in startups? And I guess you sort of had that expectations versus reality. So was it as cool as you thought it was?
Yeah, that's a good question. My first internship was at this company called Restoration Packaging. And that was in California, and it started as a subject within my business degree. You had to go work as a startup. So a bunch of these startups came, they pitched their ideas, and then you had to pretty much go do some work experience then for a term to get the credit for that class. So a bunch of startups pitched their idea, and the one that stood out to me was this company that they would create packaging. I'm talking about like packaging for like restaurants, whether it be like forks, knives, containers, anything
more like
like
the
that.
cutlery kind of side.
Yeah. And the difference with this was that these cutlery were made out of like recyclable material. I think it was made out of glucose or something, but it wasn't plastic, so they would biodegrade. And for each product sold, they'd plant a plant in a local environment, which is pretty cool. But it's not how that started out. The actual idea, which was put on Kickstarter and raised a whole bunch of money, was that these packages that may be made out of like some sort of paper, and within the paper there'd be a seed. And so you'd finish your coffee cup or whatever, and then you could like throw it just in the soil, and then a plant, and then a plant would grow. But they had to pivot because there was that issue of like non-native plants being planted where they shouldn't be. So instead they'd make the packaging, and then they'd go to like restoration sites and just go plant a bunch of trees, flowers, whatever was native to that area. And when I joined, it was after I did the work internship, the guy offered me to like come on as a member. I actually couldn't because I was going back to Australia. I was graduating, but I kind of regret it because that would have been like a great opportunity to be part of like a full startup, and an opportunity to stay and live in America. But my visa was ending, and you'd get deported. Anyway, so yeah.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So pretty much your internship was at the end of your degree, so you're like last semester.
Yeah, and that was the first proper work I'd ever done. Before that, I was just tennis. So yeah, it was a good experience.
Yeah, that's cool. And how does sort of like your timeline with tennis and startups sort of happen? So throughout like college, probably from year 1 to like the last year, you're all fully focused on tennis. And when did you sort of like, quotes like retire and then ease into startups? Because I guess it was tennis, startups, KPMG, Padel, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much the timeline. So yeah, it was tennis, and the first 2 years of college was like tennis, like yes, still want to go professional, check what I can do on the professional scene. But after realising, I have some issues with my body and I'm probably not that good enough to be top 100 in the world, I started looking at, okay, maybe I can use my degree to get a job. So it was like the 4th year when I got that internship work experience with that environmental company. That's kind of when it started. After that, when I graduated in 2019, just before COVID, is how I remember it. So it shifted. I think I'd stopped tennis then, and I didn't play for eight months to a year. So I started focusing on like looking for a job. But while I was looking for a job, I had this idea, which was some virtual reality software stuff. I'm sure we'll get into it. So I started that. That was developed a little bit, and then I got this offer at KPMG, and I decided to take this offer from KPMG.
Wow, so many opportunities along the way, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, I just want to first probably talk about it all in chronological order. So let's go tennis. So you land in the States and you think this is the beginning of your dream. And so what was that sort of, maybe, I guess, there wasn't like, Australia is not too different from America. So how was the sort of like culture shock, if there was any, or any sort of things that, you were quite young at the time and fresh-eyed and...
Yeah, I was 17, so I was 17 when I moved away just by myself, didn't know anyone. Rock up, and I mean, America's like pretty similar to Australia, but there's small differences, like if you watch the movies like American Pie, it's pretty much exactly the same. So you got your fraternities and you got your sororities.
Wow.
So there's parties like every night of the week. Like if you wanted, you could go Monday to Sunday, just like parties, bars.
Wow.
And then,
that's your vibe at the time?
No, this is not my vibe. I mean, even if it was, if coach found out that you're like partying every night, he'd probably just cut your scholarship, be like, you're not here for the right reasons. We're paying you to play tennis. See you later. But no, that wasn't my vibe. Sports was my vibe, and you had to train 35 hours a week. So you're training 35 hours a week. You're traveling every couple of weeks to go play other schools. So you're missing classes, you're missing tests that you then have to catch up. And then you're a full-time student as well. So it's like there's a lot going on. And then you want to like make the most out of your social life. You're never going to be in a situation where there's like 24,000 students just in a small campus, all the same age. So you're trying to make the most out of that. So time management is a big one, which is kind of why I think my time management skills are so good right now, as I did 5 years of that. Sports is a huge thing in America. Like everyone gets behind the sports. They're like wearing their like high school basketball jersey like to class. And the first thing, when it's so weird, like Americans, like when they start talking to each other and they meet each other, literally the second sentence is, where are you from? And it's like, what suburb in which state are you from? They're very like where they're from matters a lot
Yeah.
to them. Whereas in Australia, it's, oh, you're from Melbourne, oh, that's cool. And that might come up like in the third, fourth conversation.
Yeah. Oh.
And the classes, I think it's marked easier. The grading system is a bit different.
Oh, hello, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Worth moving for.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, like an A is 100% to 90%, so it's quite tough.
Yeah.
But I think they mark it like more leniently than Australia. So yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. And tell me more about the time management. So what was your sort of a study system?
Yeah, so, I mean, my whole time, I don't think I worked, I didn't study past 11 p.m.
Okay, solid.
in my life. There's some guys that are, studying till like 4 a.m., right? Have to wake up at practice for 6 a.m. And then that's their routine. And they don't have much social life. I think for me, just what I found work was getting back. So my routine was you go early morning training from like 7:30 to 9:30. You then have classes, you go see the physio, you maybe finish up at like 2 p.m, 5 p.m, depending on the day, your schedule. And then the best thing for me was just going straight to the study. Yeah. Straight to the study for like 3 hours. I'd never like work in front of the class. Like, you know how professors always say, oh, read ahead for the next class?
Yeah.
Never did that. So yeah, you just put some time aside, do some study, figure out a system that works for you like effectively in study. Like, how do you learn best? Are you a visual learner? Are you like, do you have to write it out to remember it? Do you like highlighting things? Find what works for you.
And what were you?
Yeah, I'm like a visual learner, but also I had to write it out if I wanted to remember. And I had a pretty good short-term memory, so I could remember things when I needed to. But if you asked me like a week later after the test, I'd pretty much like forget it all. So yeah, I think time management for me, it comes more natural in some people. Like I've never stress like plays a big role into how you can remember things too, and I'd never really felt stressed.
Oh. We would dig into that.
I think I have like some weird ability to not be able to feel stressed. So yeah, it's just like, it just came easy to me compared to some other people who like really struggle to juggle all the things happening in college.
Yeah, talk to me about procrastination. So like once you've like had like a really, rigorous tennis sesh, like the last thing you want to do is study, right? But you seem like you like flip from one task to another. It's just like study mode. You don't even need that kind of break, no?
Yeah, because after training usually like pretty exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember because classes, you'd have training and then classes and then you go to study. So I guess the classes you sometimes that's your rest period. You're like replenishing your energy, you're having lunch. Maybe like dozing off a little bit in class. And then by the time you get home, you feel like mentally kind of like fresh and physically you're alright. You get used to it. Like 3 weeks, I feel like is like if you're going to build a new habit, it takes about 3 weeks. So if you're training really hard for 3 weeks, after the third week, you'll be like, oh, this is easy. This is like pretty normal, and you get in that routine. And so when you're like studying, you're like, all right, I feel pretty fresh, pretty good.
Yeah, and so still pretty fresh after 4 or 5 years of this? Did you start to hate it?
My tennis, like I definitely got burnt out. The last coach, he was a bit of a hard ass and didn't make me, he made me almost hate it. Like I didn't love it anymore. I didn't have that love for it. I was definitely burnt out, which is why then I took that year off. I just didn't really want to play tennis at all. Yeah.
And tell me, how did you sort of deal with like difficult coaches, and how do you remain calm and not stressed if that still was a thing?
I think me like staying calm and stressed, I think that's what some coaches didn't like actually. For example, the one coach, my last coach, he when you won a point, he really wanted you to like show emotion and like fire up.
Yeah.
And just like shout out to the boys who were playing on courts next to you. But myself being like a relaxed, laid back personality, I was like, I couldn't really do that. Like I couldn't really force myself to like show this like fake emotion because I'd trained my whole like career just to be like mentally even and like emotionally stable on the court. And then to all of a sudden like try change and do something that's like not you, I just couldn't do it. And I think like he definitely got angry at that. He's like, I need you to show more, and I just couldn't. Like it was just not within me. And so he'd get angry, and like some examples like just like yelling in your face, like here, spitting on you, breaking your equipment, other people's equipment, threatening to like cut your scholarship and send you back to Australia, and just like playing mind games, like it's telling you, or maybe you're autistic, like you should go get tested. And
wow,
just
so self-deprecating, man.
Yeah, the whole system there. There's a lot of like coaches like that, like the old school, like super tough, like hard asses is what you call them, that don't really understand like the difference between generations and how they best respond to stuff. I mean, maybe back in the day, some people would respond to that.
Get the whip out.
Yeah, there's other ways to breed toughness than just like physically punishing and threatening people like that. But some of the ways you just deal with it is just, I mean, what can you do? You just like nod your head, pretend like you agree with them, and do what they ask to a point where you like feel comfortable, and then just go about your business. Like right there, they have all the control. They can cut your scholarship for pretty much no reason, even if they don't like you, and then you're just like there with half a degree, and you're like, well, what do I do now? You don't really have any power whatsoever.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And what about for other students? It was more or less the same, or was it like that? Some coaches were, particularly, I guess, cruel to you, or?
Yeah. So like, I mean, there have been other stories where like players have been treated really badly. But it's not all players, the coaches will like some players, it just really depends. But there's a lot of bad coaches, and you hear some like pretty bad stories. Like my other friend, he went to college on a full scholarship, so everything was paid for. Yeah. And when he got there, I guess maybe the pressure or just a different environment, being away from home, but he couldn't really like win a match, and he was recruited to go play number one and be the best player, but he was playing like at the bottom and not winning. Yeah. Right. And so the coaches, it's a business for them. They've given this guy like $400,000. He's not delivering the results. So what can we do? Within the contracts, they say you're not allowed to cut scholarships because of like someone not performing. But they do it all the time. Yeah. So what they did, they cut this guy's scholarship. He had to go back to Australia. They said, it's because he wasn't listening to coach's instructions. But I was there at college with him, and he was listening. Like he was trying everything to like try win matches. They just gave that like bull idea.
Yeah, they can say anything they want, right?
Yeah.
There's very little sort of people they should have brought Dom in, like, hey man, like my friend was listening.
Yeah.
He was trying.
Yeah, no, but there's not much that I could do either, because I'm just another number. I don't have much power. But
they'll cut your scholarship too. Goodbye.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I think he ended up trying to sue the college or the coaches. Yeah. Not actually sure the result of that, but it was like quite messy. So
so how did you survive, Dom?
I barely got through at the end. At the end, I was very, very close to getting my scholarship cut. Like there were threats happening, but that was only because in my last year, I wasn't winning as much as my year before. The year before, I had insane year. Like I think it was the second best record in history, and so I was winning every single match. Like
so good.
Playing number 2, and then the next year, sometimes it happens. It's pretty rare, but. You just like struggle like season to season, and so I was struggling maybe because it was change of racket, maybe it's my last year. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm just going to chill. Like, I don't want to go professional anymore. But just wasn't winning the matches. And for the coaches, it's a business. So if you're not winning, they're not going to like you.
Yeah.
When you're winning, everything's all good. When you're losing, it's just a completely different story.
Yeah. Oh, that is so sucky.
Mm.
Yeah. So tell me some of the highlights.
Oh, the highlights.
Yeah. Tournaments that you've played in, like times that you remember.
Yeah. Some of the highlights is I won nationals with my partner at the time, Max Purcell, and now he's the current Wimbledon doubles champion. So he's like, he'll go down in history, like his name's carved into Wimbledon. Probably like what a lot of people say the greatest tournament of all time is. Me and him won nationals at 16s, so that's a pretty big deal. It's like best people in the country. Also won a doubles title with Alex de Minaur, who's number 20 in the world right now.
Wow.
So he's making millions of dollars. He's sponsored by all the big brands. So those are some highlights, and then I just remember like winning a couple matches that meant like a lot to me as a junior as well. And in college, like a couple of matches that you really remember for some reason, it was special. Maybe you played really well, you executed on something you've been working on. So there's some good highlights there, and
Yeah. And do you ever find that like your sort of self-worth was tied to whether or not you won or lost?
That's a deep question.
Because like the whole world is judging you, like your coaches.
Yeah.
How they treat you depends on this, and it's so hard to not internalize it.
No, that is true. I think that is a thing actually. Yeah, because I think the guys in my team who weren't doing so well, their confidence kind of reflects it, and how they carry themselves. Like their ego just gets smaller and smaller, and for athletes, ego is a massive thing. It's how other people perceive you, it's how you perceive yourself. And to be really good at a sport, like you do have to be selfish and have a massive ego.
Yeah.
And when you're not winning, your ego deflates, and it kind of does tie back to your self-worth, because again, it's a business. Your self-worth, if you're winning, is really high. If you're losing, it's really low. But some people feel that pressure more than others. I've always felt like I was just playing for myself, which is why I didn't really feel the pressure. But some people feel like they're playing for the whole team. They're playing to keep their scholarship. Like they don't want to let down anyone else, let down their coach. And I think those are the people that like really struggle, because it's just like so much pressure. Yeah.
And let's talk about like, how do you deal with the bad days? What's your de-stressor? Because usually like, if people, they would just say a sports, but when your career is the sport, then surely you don't hit a few balls to de-stress, right?
Yeah, sometimes you actually do. Just without like any results, you just go out there and
smack it against the wall or something.
hit some balls, take your anger out, just like kind of relax. No, that's a good question. On the bad days, you don't really get a chance to have a bad day, because like you have to train 35 hours a week, like it's in your contract. And so that means you're practicing every day. So you got to practice no matter what. If you're feeling like not too good, if you're like a little bit injured, that's the other thing. They make you play when you're injured. They don't really care about your well-being. You can't really afford any bad days. If you're hungover, still got to play.
Yeah. Wow, but sounds like you sort of copped it well, man. Like.
Yeah, no, I learned a lot of lessons, because you're in this situation that's quite difficult to deal with, especially like being there by yourself at such a young age.
Yeah, so vulnerable, man.
Yeah, you learn a lot of things really quickly because you're kind of forced to. But it was a great experience. Like, I'm not hating on it or anything. Like, it was an amazing experience, and the good times, like the memories of just bonding with your teammates. That's probably one of the best things. Like, now I have friends from like France, Spain, Argentina who are in my team, and you go through that like tough training together, and dealing with the bad days, bad losses, the high highs, the good wins, and you just like become really close.
It's just a package deal.
Yeah, it is. You get the good, but you also get the bad.
But the bad is so bad, but the good is so good.
Yeah, the good still outweighs the bad. So I'd recommend that anyone like should go to college.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. Last thing on the bad. So physical damage to the body, was it worth it? Do you want to tell the audience? I've heard like when I listened to your speech, I was like, wow, that is shocking.
Yeah, so I got a lot of injuries. So I got hip impingements, which I mean, your femur, when your femur's bigger than the actual socket, it grinds away like the cartilage and the ligaments. So I got those in both hips. I got degeneration, dehydration, bulging discs in my lower back. I got some scoliosis in my upper back. Had a broken knee, have a couple torn ligaments in my left ankle. That one's actually not from tennis, that one's from soccer. But the rest, not sure, like with the issue with my back, the doctor was like, you have a body of a 7-year-old, like you don't want to see this type of back.
And you were like 25?
I was 16 actually.
Oh shoot!
Yeah.
That was before you went to America.
Yeah, so I had that issue going into America, and I had to like not tell the coaches about this issue, because otherwise they'd be like, why would we want this guy with this back issue? You know, why are we going to give him like $400,000? So I kind of had to hide that and try work on it. What would happen is that every now and again I'd do a certain movement and then I'd pretty much be paralysed because my back would spasm to try to protect all the structural damage. And then for a week I just couldn't do anything, couldn't put my socks on, couldn't get in the car. And that was happening from when I was 16 to when I was 22. And it was pretty funny. It was actually the first match we were meant to play at my second college. So I'd got given a big scholarship. I'd gone there, done training, and the day before my back goes. And I'm like, coach, like I can't play. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, my back's gone. I can barely move. He's like, you didn't tell me about this, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're going to have to play. And I was like, no, like I can't play. It's not good. I can barely move. Anyway, I didn't play, but he was like, no, that's really bad. So I was a bad note to start off. But I managed to sort out the issue. In college, you get free physio. So I'd go to the physio every day for like an hour between classes, and we're working on strengthening my abs, strengthening my glutes, and doing yoga. And for 6 months I was spending like an hour and a half doing rehab every day. Nothing, no improvement. And then all of a sudden something kind of clicked and I kind of bent over and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
I can actually like, this is how a normal back's meant to be. I can go down without any pain. I can sit down without any pain. And that was just amazing. And I was like, wow, I'd give up like all my memories and everything just to have this normal back. And so from the time I was 22 to 25 now, I had to do like a lot of maintenance and rehab just to maintain this healthy feeling back. Although I do have a lot of structural damage, you can do stuff to make it feel better. So I still play tennis, I play paddle, I surf, I play like volleyball, all sorts of sport, and no issues. You just learn to understand your body, figure out how you can maintain and stay injury free. And yeah, same thing with my hips. Like I figured out how to solve my hip issue, knee issue, back issue. The important thing is to get multiple opinions, because doctors and physios, they don't know everything. So many times I've been like misdiagnosed or told you should never play sport again. Like that doctor, when I saw him when I was 16, he said, don't ever play sport again. Like quit tennis, quit everything you're doing. And if I listened to him, what would I be doing now? Just like lying in bed like with chronic back pain. It's just, they don't know everything, so they get second opinions, do your research, and
wow, that's amazing.
Dan,
that is such a big risk to go to America by yourself with that.
It was. The thing is, it wouldn't happen every time. I got to a point where it was like happening once every 3 months. So like, okay, like maybe I can get away with it.
But it's kind of like a ticking time bomb. You're just like, man, I've had a good back for 2 months. I'm so sick.
It's about to happen. I kind of like risked it there, and I guess I risked it getting worse because I understood what it was, but didn't really know how to fix it. Just risked it all, but managed to solve it out, and everything's good now.
So good.
Yeah.
Happy ending.
Yeah, it feels so good to be able to just sit down with no pain, put your socks on.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
So other than the first time you had to skip that match, was there any other times you had to skip it because of the back, or it just didn't pop up at the big tournament times?
No, I think there were a couple matches I had to miss. Yeah. And then in my final year, I didn't have to miss any because at that time, like I'd solved it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of cool because I don't know, I wondered if you weren't pursuing professional tennis at the time, if you would have actually gone to the measure to find a way to fix the back, because normal office jobs, whatnot, you might not actually have had that motivation. So maybe tennis caused the back pain, and maybe it also fixed it.
Yeah, I don't know like what caused it. It could have been I was born with it, or it could have been when I was like 12 or even younger. The tennis coaches, they had me in the gym like lifting heavy weights, and you're not meant to when you're growing, right? So, and there wasn't really any rehab program like recover, like stretching, which should have. So that could have definitely caused it. We just don't know. All I know is like I have it now, so I got to deal with it. But yeah, like you said before, it could have caused it, and then it could have solved it.
Yeah. Cool, nice.
Yeah.
And now we want to talk about startups. So you missed that awesome opportunity to stay in America.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did you? That's like a really important decision point. So how did you decide if you wanted to, stay and be a member, or to come back to Australia?
I called my dad. I think I called my dad with every important decision. I trust him a lot. I called him. I think the final decision was that I was actually kind of like missing home and missing my family. So I'd come back for maybe 3 months and just kind of like assess to see how I'm feeling then. And so that's what I did. I think I ended up missing America, and I did want to live there. But then after a while being in Australia, I was like, you know what, this isn't bad. Like maybe I do want to live here. That situation kind of passed me by. I was involved in my own startup, actually. So I had this kind of ideas also with the help of my mum. And it was an issue that I'd struggled with, not knowing what to study in college. And I know a lot of high schoolers, they finish high school and they're like, well, what should I go study now? What should I pursue for the rest of my life? And not many of them know, because you don't have many opportunities to do work experience. And so I had this idea that maybe we could use virtual reality to create virtual job shadows. And so you'd put on a headset and you can like experience a day in the life of a mechanical engineer or a consultant. So I had this idea, and I attended a startup weekend where
nice.
you kind of pitch your ideas again, and then if someone likes your idea, you form teams. So that long weekend, my idea was one of the good ones, so I formed a team, and we did as much as we could in 3 days, and then you present to a judging panel, and they like vote like what are the best ideas, the most plausible, and we got like a special recognition prize then.
Lovely.
After that, I pursued it by myself, so everyone else, they had their own responsibilities, and I was like, all right, I'm going to pursue this myself. So we hadn't done anything in virtual reality then, it was just videos. So I created a video of what I thought the experience should look like. I hired a guy on Airtasker or something to do that.
Yeah.
And then I had that, so I had this vision. I didn't have any coding skills. I didn't know where to start with virtual reality. So like, what do I do? So I reached out to professors in colleges who are like studying or teaching, like design, software engineering, programming, virtual reality stuff. And I was like, do you have any students who'd be willing to do some...
No, it's good.
Yeah, but they get a bit of work experience,
it's like it works for them, it works for you.
Yeah, it's like kind of a win-win, and then if the company does go well and it grows, like you bring them on, you can give them a salary and stuff.
Yeah.
And it got a couple of people who ended up working for me, and they were creating the virtual reality, like through like all the code and design. And I was just kind of the business, crunching the numbers, creating how I believe the virtual reality should look. And we worked on that for I think a year and a half, and we got to a stage where it was on the headset, and we'd then take it to high schools and show it to career counsellors and to students, and we'd get their feedback. And then we'd get their feedback, sort it nicely so we get the understandings from it, and then make the demo even better.
Yeah.
And we got to a point where like some career counsellors were like, this is really good, like I'll purchase this. And then I got this job offer from KPMG, and I was like, that was another really tough decision. And I asked my dad, and Dad was like, like up to you. Maybe like the positives of working at KPMG, obviously it's a big company. You get to actually see for the first time how a big company operates.
Yeah.
And what they do, so you could learn from that. And then you also have KPMG behind your name if you want to start another company in the future.
Yeah.
Like investors and stuff look favourably on that. So I made the tough decision to kind of like put the virtual reality on hold, and then I moved from Perth to Brisbane to start at KPMG a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Wow. And tell me, so at that time, how did you get the offer? Were you applying at the same time as like a safety net? Or?
Yeah, I was applying at the same time. I was kind of just like assessing my options just to see, and then got this offer through a contracting company actually, which is I'm a contractor at KPMG.
Yeah. So were you at that time? Were you like a little bit worried if this thing fell through? So you're like, hey man, like maybe like I would need a job if like this startup doesn't work.
Yeah. I think like all startups do have like doubts, whether it's gonna be successful or not. With it being my first kind of like venture outside of high school, college, and not having any experience other than tennis and coaching, I was like, all right, maybe I should go get some proper like real world experience before I try run my own company. But I don't know, there's like regrets there because it was going well, we were getting momentum. And if I wanted to, like I could take it back up. It's on hold. I got the software on my virtual reality headset at home. It's just, it was a tough decision.
Could you have done both at the time?
Well, from my understanding of working in a Big Four, I knew it's like there's going to be some heavy hours. Maybe if I wanted to sacrifice some weekends, but I put it on hold because like traveling to a different state by yourself, you want to get settled in, not do too much too soon. That's cool. And speaking of Big Four, and then also not having much time, Padel champion. Yes.
So has like, surely you could have switched out your time playing Padel.
Yeah, that's true.
VR, but yeah.
Yeah, I decided to not even pursue the Padel. I was just playing Padel as a kind of hobby. A couple of years ago, like one of my tennis friends, he's like, just come play some Padel, And I played for the first time. I was like hooked. I was like, this is so good. It's like tennis, but it's like not tennis. You get to play it off the walls. I'm like, wow, like, I'm good, but there's so much to learn. And I was just hooked. And so I was just playing for a hobby for like a year and a half. And this is before KPMG. Even when I did move to Brisbane and started working at KPMG, I just played as a hobby once a week down on the Gold Coast. And then it was only a couple of months ago, I found out that you can play for Australia. There's an Australian team that plays in the World Cup Championships every couple of years, and it's the best 8 men and 8 women. And I was like, all right, like maybe rather than it being a hobby, maybe I can like pursue this a bit more. And so that's kind of what I did. I went to the trials, which was hosted in Sydney, and like I won the trials there, which kind of guaranteed my spot. And then, I got to go over and compete for Australia for Padel. So I guess it's a bit more of a hobby now, and it's something that I kind of fit in during work. I did miss some work time to go play in Egypt.
Good excuse.
Yeah, it was a good excuse.
All over Brekkie news, man.
Yeah, it was, and it was pretty cool. KPMG like helped like cover some of the costs for that as well. So it's a great company to work for.
Yeah, that's cool. And at the time, like, you know, before you decided to, like, you know, go for the trial in Sydney, was that like, you know, was this voice in the back of your mind like, hey, do I really want to do this again? Because you've seen that, like, when you turn your hobby into, I guess, like a career, it can really add a lot of pressure to something that you love.
Yeah, at that point, I started to really miss like competing at a high level.
Yeah.
Like as an athlete, that's kind of what you miss most about competition, is just that feeling of being in the moment. You just trying everything you can do to win, and then when you win, it's just like an amazing feeling. And so you kind of miss like giving 100% and trying your hardest and doing all the things on the side like gym and running to give yourself that best thing. So like I kind of miss that. So Padel gave me like an opportunity to reinvigorate myself there, and gave me some more motivation to keep going to the gym and to go running like early in the morning before work. And I was like, no, this is great. Like, you know, this is what I've been like missing the last couple of years. So yeah, it's really good. And I still play after Egypt. The only thing is like it's gonna sound like pretty bad, but I didn't want to get so good that I couldn't play with anyone else in Australia. Like everyone wouldn't be on that level anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's still
pretty
fun.
lonely at the top.
Yeah. That's what the saying is. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's pretty cool. You still have that, like, you know, self-confidence, huh?
Yeah.
Didn't get broken down in America.
Yeah. Every athlete, like, and every world champ has to have like a big ego.
Yeah.
And the world champs, they have to have a big ego, but they also just have to have something like mentally wrong with them, because like it's like impossible to give 100% every day, no matter whether you're sick, you don't feel like doing it. You just have to be like mentally different. And I reckon there's only like 1% of the population who can do that, or you got to be just ridiculously talented, which is even smaller population. But yeah, like, yeah, what can I say?
That's crazy. Cool, nice. We're rounding up the final questions. So yeah, Dom, like, you know, looking back at like 3 different careers, you know, would you have like done anything differently? Or would you have like decided like, hey, it might have just been easier if I, you know, skipped the tennis stuff and just went to paddle, and then, you know, or like, you know, just went straight to corporate rather than doing the startups?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I feel like paddle is my sport, and if I'd played that since I was 3 years old, like, I reckon I could be one of the best in the world. It just kind of suits the attributes that I have. So that's one regret. But the thing is, paddle didn't exist in Australia until 6 years ago. So what could I have done? I could have
born at the wrong time, man.
Yeah, and wrong country. I could have been. I could, like, if they'd moved to Spain rather than Australia from South Africa, maybe. There's also the phenomenon that, you know, because you have a backup plan by going to college rather than pursuing tennis full time as a professional, you kind of like rationalize it, and you're not as committed because you know you have to make it. When you know you're safe. So sometimes I think about that, like, should I have just gone straight professional and had no education and just like pursued that like it was my life? Other regret is just listening to coach. There's good and bad. Like, listening to coaches is good. Like, that's how you improve. But some coaches, they don't know anything, just like doctors. So maybe like lifting heavy weights when I was 12 years old was not the best thing, because you want to prioritize your wellness and health over anything. So if I had a bad back now and a whole bunch of injuries that I couldn't handle, like, I would sacrifice like everything just to like have a good back. So that's why I like prioritize your wellness over everything. So I mean, I do have these injuries now and I can maintain them, but I just don't know what the situation will be like when I'm 50, if it's going to like really be affecting me. So I just wish I paid more attention to recovery and, you know, what you should be doing when you're younger. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Cool. Also want to ask, what do you think the meaning of life is, in your opinion?
Meaning of life. So I think you got to look at like yourself, like this is your life. So for me, it's improving on you, you know, being better every day, working on the things you want to work on, which gives you self-satisfaction, and then just leaving the earth in a better place than when you started, whether that be like environmental, leaving some sort of legacy like a company or,
Yeah, that's cool. And so, Dom, if you won the lottery tomorrow and finances were not a concern, what would you do differently about your life?
I'd go and move to the ocean, maybe San Diego, maybe Seychelles, somewhere where you could get just waves every day, any day. And I'd buy a house there that just overlooks the beach,
Nice.
and surf every day.
Yeah.
Surf every day and have no worries about anything else. Yeah,
Still do paddle?
that'd be the dream. Oh yeah, I'd build a paddle court in my backyard for sure. Paddle court in the backyard, and maybe like donate like the rest to help the environment.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So, final question is, what's an ideal day in the life for you? It can be work related, it can be non-work related. What kind of activities would you prefer? I guess the surfing, the paddle, anything else?
Yeah, so wake up, sleep in, of course.
Yeah.
Go for a surf, like 3 hours surf, just till you're knackered.
Yeah.
Get out and have a fish and chips, I reckon. Fish and chip feed after a surf is just...
Yeah.
Chill out, maybe a cheeky afternoon nap.
Yes.
Play some paddle with your 4 best mates. And then just in the evening, maybe watch a movie, just do something low-key with a friend, a girlfriend, or... something like that, and just put that on repeat.
Yeah.
That'd be ideal.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I hope you get to maybe do a little bit of that this weekend.
Yeah, hopefully, hey.
Yeah, but we're pretty much at the end of the podcast. You want to say bye? Bye.